Hey everybody, it is Eloy, and I am back now with another kind of discussion here about what it's like to be in the RPG industry. And today I kind of want to share with you kind of one of my tricks, I guess is a weird way to say it, but basically just something that I use as a way to continue, motivating myself to keep going in this industry. Anybody who's already in the industry, you already know that it's incredibly difficult for you to actually, make any headway, to get that kind of spotlight on you so that people are actually paying attention to you. And it is actually kind of difficult to do that when you're first starting off. And I've said it like a bunch of times, but, the RPG industry rewards longevity. So if you're around for a while, inevitably somebody is going to actually see what you do. And there are goods and bad parts to that. And what I'm going to talk about today is called the Nemesis Theory. And this is something that I use when I get negative feedback, which, it happens. It definitely happens. As somebody who is constantly trying to push the envelope, trying to create new things. The idea is that whenever you get negative feedback, you kind of, not in a malicious way or anything, but you kind of look at who's giving you that feedback. In my case, something that actually kind of pushed me forward after my very first game. Anybody who isn't familiar, my first game was Apocalypse Prevention Inc. Known going forward as API because it's much easier to say that. So in my design, the game itself, the first edition, the mechanics were clunky, but a lot of the concepts and stuff were good in there. That's why it deserved a second edition, and the second edition's way better, much more streamlined. Even though it's the same system, it actually is it just works way better. So I actually really enjoy the second edition. But this was a review that I received for the first edition. This was at a time where I had one game out, a couple of source books for it. I was kind of working on my second game, trying to see what else I could do with it. And I got this, devastating bad review. And that bad review was written by somebody who was a well-known entity in the gaming industry. Someone who not only worked for one of the largest gaming companies, but also somebody who had their own gaming company and was coming out with their own stuff, and they were well-respected, and there was a lot of stuff going behind this. So for them to give me that negative review, it kind of hurt. Not that they were a hero of mine or anything, because before that review I had only really heard about them in passing, but on an industry level, they were a somebody. So reading the review, and this is an interesting thing with my review of API, what I had at the beginning of the book, and I believe it's still there in second edition, I guess I'd have to go back and check it, but I know myself, I'm stubborn enough that I wouldn't have removed it, I would have just modified it. But at the beginning of the book, I have a lot of prompts for here are things that you can use to conceptualize who your character is before you get into the character creation. Now, a lot of games will be well, make your character and then figure out who they are. Whereas for me, I front-loaded it, and I had a lot of what is their background? What is their profession? What is their ethnicity? What is all this stuff? And one of the things that I had on there was I said, and what is their sexuality? Because that obviously has something to do with the character. And in the end, this really, really terrible, scathing review, it all boiled down to the fact that when I was saying, are you straight or are you possibly gay? And then I said, and gay would mean that you like someone of the same gender as you. And a lot of the review was this reviewer kind of going at me saying you don't think we know what gay is and blah, blah, blah. And, it's weird kind of looking back. Yeah, you know what, kind of by today's standards, I may not have added an extra line explaining what it means to be gay. In the moment when I was writing that book, it felt right. I felt like I needed to state it out loud that this is okay, you can do this, and it is fine. But the reviewer was just kind of all over it. And in the review, they even said, and I even showed it to some of my friends, and they were really angry about it too, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. If you are angry about something and you show it to your echo chamber, they're probably also going to be angry about it. I've looked back at it several times, and I'm like, I guess I can see where somebody would have an issue with it, but not enough to like give a bad review to it for one line at the beginning of the book. Like it was like almost 300 pages. Like, okay, what about the other 299 pages of the book? Like, come on. So what I did is, after I found out who this person was, and I'm trying not to drop any names because I'm not looking for anybody to like, reach out to this person or anything. I also don't think that there's any bad blood between me and that person because, again, the Nemesis Theory here that I will eventually talk about is more about you and not about the person who is now your nemesis. And that's what happened, is I made this person my nemesis. Anybody close to me knows exactly who this person is. So this person works for a big company. This person has their own game lines. They have a few different game lines. This person is a guest at this con. This person does this, this, and this. And I said, you know what? Let's do this. And again, not in a malicious way, but I started to see, can I beat this person? If this person works for this company, can I work for that company too? Oh, look at that, I got a job with that company. All right, well, that person is a little bit higher up in the company. You know what, I think I'm good. I don't really need to go that high in that company. I'm gonna stick over here and I'm gonna keep doing my thing. Then I got other opportunities that I don't know, I feel kind of put that person, much lower on that like pedestal that I had them on as my nemesis. So I started just kind of chipping away. I started coming out with newer and more innovative games. I started seeing that my company was becoming more successful and their company was becoming less successful. Eventually, I even reached out to this person and I said, hey, you know what, it would be fun if we worked on something together. And they said, yeah, it actually would be. Again, they have no clue that they were my nemesis, but that's just how that is. But what I did was I used that negative energy, that feeling of being down, that thing that was like, I was so beating myself up because I had gotten a bad review. And I turned that into motivation for me to continue moving forward. And I think that that's something that each of you could possibly do. And it doesn't even have to be somebody who specifically, targeted you or gave you a bad review or anything. I personally kind of do that. Even if any of you were to choose me as your nemesis, I love that idea. If game design and being in the industry and stuff is all the stuff, if that's the stuff you want to do, I make for a pretty good nemesis for you to try and, beat. And nemesis, rivalry, whatever you want, and it's completely one-sided, so you never have to contact that person, you never have to let them know. You're really just using it to motivate yourself. I've actually been growing my company larger and larger for the last few years. And the reason for that, and I will say this one, is because there was, my very first game was up for an award. Mermaid Adventures, the very first ENnie that I was like, ooh, this one's gonna win. It was the first year that there was a kids or family gaming category, and my game was in there, and then it was in there with like Evil Hat and like, Cubicle 7 and like all this stuff. And I remember this vividly, but Mermaid Adventures did not win. And Mermaid Adventures is a game that I created for kids to be run by kids, and like, if anything, it was the premier family game that was on that list, obviously in my opinion. But the game that ended up winning was Doctor Who from Cubicle 7. Because Doctor Who has a lot of name recognition, it is actually a fun game too. I've played it, and Cubicle 7 was a larger company than mine. So obviously those things all combined with the ENnies, which is largely, kind of a popularity contest, Mermaid Adventures did not win. But when the guy got up there, and I don't remember his name, he gets up to the mic and he says, "Thank you for this award for the best family game. My daughter can't wait until she can play Daddy's games with him." And I got really mad. And the people who hung out with me after those awards, yeah, you could tell that I was very, very mad, because again, my game was purchased by kids who had never run games before and were starting to run games because of my game. And I wrote it for that reason. So for me, I was very mad. So what I've been doing is actually making strides in my own company to keep growing, to keep doing things, to keep innovating, and hopefully one day, who knows, maybe we will be bigger than Cubicle 7. Now, Cubicle 7 does different stuff than I do, different subject matter, different everything, so I'm not trying to be Cubicle 7. But I want to be able to look at Cubicle 7 and be like, you were up here, and I was down here, and now I'm here. And again, I'm using that as positive motivation for me to keep moving forward. So what you should do is you should go out there and pick a nemesis. Pick somebody that you're like, I'm gonna be bigger. I'm gonna be better than you. And see where that takes you, because rivalry is an amazing motivator. So if you already have a nemesis, let me know. I want to hear about who your nemesis is down in the comments. If you remember that year at the ENnies and you were just as mad that Mermaid Adventures didn't win, I want to hear about that down in the comments. Either way, I definitely want to hear from you. Hopefully you did like this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like and bell and all that stuff. There's a link to all of my games down in the description, and you can check out Mermaid Adventures and some of my other things. Otherwise, I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out.